Hi.
Hello.
So welcome everyone. We've all heard the saying, the diet starts on Monday. I've said that myself. You have all these ideas that you're going to start eating clean, drinking more water, getting back on the pony on Monday, and then by Thursday you've fallen off the rails. And it's not because you don't know what you need to do. You have the head knowledge, but somehow, I don't know, it could be willpower, it could be something else. We tend to go through these cycles and get stuck. And I've got someone here who's an expert in the space, in the wellness space, Laura Kirsten. She shares my surname, although we're not related, but we are good friends. And she's going to share a little bit about how we can get unstuck and stop going around in circles. So yeah, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. It's great to be with you.
Okay, so Laura, you've spent, since 2020, you've been mentoring women, on their health journeys. And if there's a woman who's feeling really overwhelmed right now, what do you think the single biggest misconception you see about what a healthy lifestyle actually is?
I think the biggest misconception is that it needs to be perfect. Consistency beats perfection any day. So like you just spoke about, starting on a Monday and falling off the bandwagon on a Thursday, usually it's because we try to implement too much too soon. Now, some people do well with 180 degree, they need to make the big switch. For other people, they just need small incremental changes that they can implement, and that is more sustainable for them. But repetition and small sustainable actions far outweigh 4 days of what seems like a perfect overhaul of your life.
That makes complete sense. I think to habits that I've incorporated over time that now I don't think about anymore because they become part of your natural day-to-day living, like brushing your teeth.
Yeah. In fact, when we start something, we should be able to start it any day of the week. Because we tend to lump it on poor old Monday. Monday gets everything. And in a way, it's almost like you should be able to start it on Friday or Saturday, because the idea of starting on Monday means it's almost like I'm going to have one last hurrah. I'm going to get all the good stuff out of the way, and then I'm going to punish myself on Monday. So if we want it to be something we can embrace and enjoy, we should be saying, I want to start now or tomorrow. Don't have to wait until Monday.
Yeah, totally. So it's a lot about mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like you were just saying just now, when a woman, sometimes they want to go to big extremes when they want to start shifting. So can you give some practical steps for implementing new habits? And you can just focus on maybe the ones that come up the most often when it comes to nutrition, and the little tips that people can apply to start living better.
All right, so can I maybe take it a step further and not just isolate it to nutrition, because wellness is more than that. So there are a couple of things. Yes, nutrition is very important. Everything we put in our mouth is either fuel or poison. So we're either helping our bodies or we're breaking it down. And so we want to make sure that the things we're putting in are nourishing our bodies. They're giving us energy. It's real food. But the other areas are also hydration, because many times we feel tired or depleted or even hungry and we're needing water. We are dehydrated. And when I say dehydrated, I'm not referring to you lying in the ER with an IV in your arm. You're dehydrated. Your cells are starting to dehydrate, and we can misinterpret those signals for hunger. So it's, are we hydrating? And when we're hydrating, are we hydrating with water that is clean, not just water straight out the tap, hopefully through a filter of some sort? And then we want to look at rest. And when I say rest, it encompasses sleep. Yes, we need to be getting our 7 to 9 hours of sleep. If you're getting less than 7 hours, you're not going to charge up, and all the food in the world's not going to make you feel better. And then rest is time off and away from work and the day-to-day tasks, really filling your joy tank, your joy cup. So this is engaging in activities that make you feel energized and connected. Some people like to sort of isolate and hide behind a good book or binge Netflix. For other people, it's connecting and socializing. But those also play a massive part in your wellness. And then the other one is movement. So movement is medicine, and we find these days people are stuck sitting most of the day. I think it is the curse of our generation, especially with lockdown. Many people got to work from home. Some people stayed working from home. Some people have gone back to the office or a hybrid model. But the danger in working from home is you save time on the roads. You didn't have to commute. But instead of using that time for something meaningful, you just add it on to your work time. And if you get work at home, sometimes it's hard to, we joke at home and say, do we work from home or do we live at the office? You know, it's so getting up, not just sitting, smoking, getting movement in, but then getting your heart rate up. Walking, and then very important for women is load-bearing exercises that are going to offer some resistance. So all of those work holistically together to help you feel better. The nutrition plays a very big role, and we can dive into that a little bit more, but I just wanted to put it into a bigger picture of if one of those areas are missing, you can't overcompensate. You can't outsleep a bad diet, and you can't eat away bad sleep, if that makes sense.
Completely, yes, yeah. So, all right, well, let's look at the nutrition for a second. What are some things, I've heard you say instead of being so restrictive, you can add things in. So what would that look like? How could you add things into your diet that are simple little hacks, if you like, that can just help support your whole body on the nutrition front?
Okay, so the first thing is to consider if what you're eating is real food. So the emphasis is on whole food, and whole food is something that we can still identify in its more natural form. So it's your fruit, it's your vegetables, and from there you've got your herbs and your spices and things like that. But essentially, if you cannot identify, this is your first trick, if you cannot identify what something was at one stage, it's highly processed. Put it back. Similarly, if you pick up a package and you turn it around and you can make sense of the microscopic print and look at the ingredient list, if you cannot pronounce it, put it back. So stick to whole foods. As much of your diet is whole foods. One of the best hacks is something we call raw before cooked. Now, I'm not talking about sushi. I'm talking about something raw that you can literally chop up. Look, if you love being in the kitchen, whip up a little side plate of salad to have before you have your main meal of the day. So the best time to have your main meal of the day is actually lunchtime, because you need fuel to get through the rest of the day. But I know practically when you are juggling kids, work, all those things, evening time does become the most common time to eat your meal. And so if it's then side plate of something raw before you eat your main meal, make a side salad, great. But if you're not one for chopping up a salad, or you think, what's the point of lettuce? Don't do that to yourself. Grab whatever you have in the house and is your favorite. So if you love avo and carrots, chop that up. It's a great way to include the family as well. So if you know what your family likes, if they like tomato and carrot, chop that up. Don't force yourself to eat a plate of celery. I don't really know anybody that really likes celery. So that alone can do a number of things. Number one is it actually prepares your digestive system for the cooked food that you're about to have. And secondly, you start to fill up before you have your main meal. So for those who are wanting to watch their weight or lose some weight, it's a clever way of reducing your main meal portion size, but not feeling hungry because you've had this salad beforehand. And the reason we want to include raw foods is that raw foods contain live living enzymes. So once we heat, so obviously animal products are dead. It's dead. And then when we cook food, we do lose some of the nutritional value. Obviously, there are many things we have to cook. You can't eat a raw potato. But a lot of fruit and vegetables, the live enzymes are destroyed by heat. So making sure we're getting some of that in raw. So raw before cooked. And then in summertime, it's easier. to have a nice smoothie in the day when you're getting hungry or at lunchtime. A nice smoothie with fresh fruit, frozen fruit. If you want to bulk it up, it's always a good idea to include a protein and a fat with every meal. So if you can add a scoop of protein powder or maybe some nuts, something, it keeps your blood sugar stable. A smoothie is another great way to get raw in. And then of course at lunchtime in summer, a nice salad with, your chicken breasts or your chickpeas or whatever you want, nice protein and some avo again. Those are some of the easier way to sneak the things in that we need to get.
So fantastic. Yeah, that makes so much sense. So basically adding in raw before cooked, getting that nutrition in, helping your digestion, and then also particularly in the summer, adding a fruit smoothie and then balancing that your blood sugar with some protein.
Yeah. And
or fats.
Maybe one more is when you are craving, cravings communicate often what we're lacking. So if you find yourself craving something salty or savory, often people might crave cheese or they might crave some crisps. If you're craving those things, your body is actually lacking essential fatty acids. So the best thing to grab then is some avo. If you are avo, olives, things like that, if you find yourself craving a chocolate bar or sweets, your body is craving natural sugar. So the best thing to do then is to grab some fruit. So what I would do is, in an instance of a craving, your body's communicating, grab the healthier alternative and see if that satisfies the craving before you. So you're not saying I'm having an apple instead of a chocolate. You're saying I'm having an apple, the chocolate's on hold. And then there's a lesser chance that you're going to reach for the chocolate bar. Those are a couple of little hacks and tricks people can try.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic, really. Before we go into some more tips, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got onto this journey. So I know that it started when you were trying to fall pregnant, and you clearly worked that out because you have a son. Is he 13 now?
13 and a half.
13 and a half. And this led you into a journey to help other women. So just take us through that briefly, how you got into this wellness space and why you want to help other women with their health.
Sure. So I was, my husband and I were married for 7 years, and we'd been together for 10 by that stage, and decided it was time to start a family. And all of our friends were starting families. Being a competitive person, I also wanted to get it right the first time. But sadly, that didn't happen. And months passed and I wasn't falling pregnant. And it didn't make sense. The doctors couldn't really find a reason. It wasn't that I had a diagnosable condition. And the doctor said to me, just relax and it will happen. And I thought, when in the history of the world has somebody actually been able to relax just by being told, just relax? So my husband had been interviewing a nutritionist at the time for his radio show and had a copy of her book. And so I started working through this. I started reading up. And what was really interesting was I discovered that there were a couple of ways that I could naturally just look at restoring and rebalancing my body. So there were some basic things I did. I cut out dairy. I started to eat a little bit less animal protein in the week, added more veggies in. I would get out into the sunshine every day. I would get my feet, thankfully it was summer, I got my feet barefoot on the grass for 20 minutes a day. So there were a couple of things that I did, and my husband as well. And we discovered that I was pregnant. So that's where we started. I'm going to fast forward to where we are now. An area that I'm really passionate about is women's hormones, one of the areas. So what I've now since discovered is a lot of those actions were actually involved in balancing my hormones, specifically estrogen and progesterone. I'd also been on a hormonal contraceptive for 7 years. So my progesterone had been blocked, and progesterone is your natural pregnancy hormone. And so for me to rectify, a lot of those actions I took played a big role. And when I felt pregnant, so we're going back to when I felt pregnant, through that whole process, now I was amazed at the fact that there was a human life growing inside of me. You've been pregnant, you've had 2 kids. So it's a mind blown, human inside me. And as I was tracking his development, I was just so marveling at this all, and I wanted to do everything I could to look after him. So I was very conscious and mindful of what I was putting into my body. But then when he was born, the adventure continued, because there's so many decisions to make about breastfeed or bottle feed or nutrition, when you introduce solids, all of these things. And so this became it's like a university of life for me. The amount of research and reading that went into it. I am by nature not somebody that just does something because everybody says that's the way you do it. So neither Brad nor I are just going to go, that's the way it's done, that's the way you do it. So every decision we made was based on researching and reading and evaluating them. And through helping my son, I ended up helping my husband. I was introduced into whole food, concentrates, nutritional supplementation, all these things. I got to help Brad with his IBS, which he was struggling with. And I so desperately wanted to start helping other people. But at that stage of our life, I think God just said to me, now is your season to help your family. I need you to focus on your family. A time will come where you can help others. And so that's what happened. And then in 2020, God gave me my go ahead, and he said now. And he'd actually given me a name for my business, Higher Living, in 2019, but I didn't understand what it meant. And so when 2020 came and he gave me the go ahead, it's actually panned out even last year in 2025. When my husband joined me, the full picture came, the Higher Living Way, and it's to help people live a better quality of life, understanding how nutrition and lifestyle affects that, and then give people the best chance to optimize their health and well-being. And so over the last 6 years now, I've had an opening and an opportunity to work with women, work with their families, and help people achieve a more optimal state of health. But yes, my journey played a big role. And then I also have to mention my dad has played a big role, because he's had a major health journey, and I've been able to come alongside him and support him. He's got kidney failure and he's on dialysis, and I've been able to come alongside him, get him off as much medication as we could, with the support and working with his doctors, and then supporting his diet and all of those things. So I've worked from the baby side to the sick elderly person and everything between. And I'm amazed at how, when the human body is given what it needs, it can heal and repair.
Yeah, and that brings me to the next question. That's exactly what I want to ask you for people, women or men listening, who feel stuck and I've messed up my metabolism. I've tried everything. What can you say about how the body's ability to repair and to restore itself, and to give people hope around that?
So it's really can be summarized in 2 very simple points. If you can imagine your body, this is the way I approach health. Your body is, in its most simplest form, made up of cells, trillions of cells. And those cells clump together to form tissue. The tissue together forms your organs, and your organs together form your different body systems. So cardiovascular system, nervous system, endocrine system, respiratory system, all of those. What transpires is we develop symptoms. So symptoms are what bubble up to the surface. And typically we tend to just treat the symptoms. But if we want to heal the body, we've got to go all the way back down to the cellular level, because that is where the problem started. Your cells knew there was a problem long before the symptom developed. And when I say symptoms, I'm talking about lethargy, brain fog, poor sleep, weight. Weight is a symptom of something not working in your body. So I'm not just talking to the biggies like cholesterol or blood pressure or diabetes or, those things. I'm talking about just anything that is not the normal state that we're in. So when we want to optimize health, I look at not the top level, I look at the bottom. So how can we restore? And it's summarized in two. Number one is our body has it's cleaning out, and number two, it's putting in. So that's very simplistic. Let me just elaborate on that. When I say cleaning out, our body has got built-in detoxification systems. We've got our liver, our gallbladder, our kidneys, our lymphatic system. All of those are working behind the scenes to clean up the toxins. So we are faced daily with toxins. We're bombarded. Everything that we eat, drink, breathe in, or apply on our skin has to pass through the liver, for example. And just those four things we face with toxins, just modern life. That puts a burden on the liver. The liver does its job. The lymphatic system does its job. And we need to support those. And then what they do is they dump all the toxins in our intestines. So part of the cleanup crew is they cleaning up, they're dumping it in your colon and your intestines. You need to be clearing out the waste. So that's step one, is are you effectively detoxifying and cleaning out the waste? Because if you are not, that creates a toxic burden on your body. Those toxins get recirculated. And we see many people are struggling with constipation, for example. They're blocked up and stopped up. And if you're not going to the toilet and having a number two, an elimination every single day, it's going to back up and you are going to have problems. So that's very simplistically step one, cleaning out. Just like if you're moving into a new house and it was a train wreck when you got there, disgustingly filthy, you first clean the house out before you can move your beautiful furniture in. Step one. Step two is, are we nourishing the cells? Because we want to put good quality food in our body. That is there to nourish your cells. That's the vitamins and minerals you're getting from your food and the antioxidants that are helping you fight cellular stress. It's the good bacteria that we're putting in for our gut. So we rebuild, we give the body like a building crew, we give them the building materials, and that is the food that we nourish our bodies with. And when we can focus on those two things, when we can focus on ensuring that our body's clearing out and that we're putting in whole foods that are abundant in vitamins and minerals, our essential fatty acids from all of the good fats, your flaxseed oil, your chia seed, your olives, your avo, your nice fatty fish. When we're putting those things in, good protein, we are giving the body the building blocks to restore. That is when we see inflammation ease. That is where we see energy restored. That is where we see weight coming back, because when we tackle weight loss, we tend to either maybe want to starve ourselves or go and over exercise, but your weight is governed by your hormonal system, your endocrine system. So we actually want to make sure that that is healthy and functioning. And it's going to be affected by those two things, clearing out and putting back in.
That makes so much sense, yeah. And it's a lot of information. I mean, we could sit here and talk about it for hours. I'm sure you could, yeah.
I do.
No, exactly. But for someone who's like, all right, I want to get started. I remember you ran a 5-day challenge at some stage, and there was little blocks, and one person it might be sleep, and another person it might be hydration. So they can just listen at wherever you're at, pick up the one thing that you need from what Laura shares and start there. So if you maybe want to share what those 5 starting blocks are to get yourself going, and I'm sure anyone listening will recognize this is the area. And although you've got to look at things holistically, sometimes there's one area that's way out of whack more than another that they need to start with.
Yes.
So if you could share those.
So first we're looking at the nutrition side of things. Are we getting in enough good, wholesome, raw food, fruit, vegetables, clean meat, meaning not got hormones in it? So are we ticking the food box? And the next one is water. Are we getting enough hydration? So with the hydration, we're looking at having your approximately 2 liters of water a day, getting in your 7 to 9 hours of sleep, getting in your movement. So aiming for maybe around 20 to 30 minutes of walking. And then the fifth one we actually did in that challenge was around mindset. So we were talking about, maybe it's a health affirmation that you say, or maybe it's just blocking out the toxic negativity that overcrowds our minds. So usually if a person looks at that, they will know where their point that they're going to struggle most with is. And so there are ways that they can weave into that, just introducing a raw before cooked will already shift something in the nutrition state. Adding in one more glass of water, setting that alarm clock 30 minutes before you need to go to bed to remind you. Penciling in your calendar, putting in your Google Calendar saying, I'm going on a walk from 4:30 to 5 today. And then just being mindful of what our minds are exposed to. Pick one, pick them all, but those are avenues that our body is going to use to heal, restore, repair, and energize.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Laura. And where can people find you if they want to know more about what you do or they want to get hold of you?
The best is to head on over to my website. It's higherlivingway.com. In there, you'll be able to get a hold of me. You'll be able to find out about events I run, Zooms I lead, the products I work with, and my social media is also on there as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And for anyone listening, I would love it if you leave a comment below. Just let me know what you enjoyed, what you'd like to know more about, whatever you're thinking.